Coach.
Yes, sir. Good to see you.
Great to see you. We'd like to officially welcome Coach Pearl to the Final Four and to the main interview room. We'll ask Coach to open things up with a statement, then we'll take some questions. Coach.
Thank you. We're excited about being back at the Final Four. You don't know that you're ever going to get there once in your career, so you feel incredibly blessed and grateful to have a second opportunity. Proud of our team for playing probably the most ambitious non-conference schedule we've ever played, and then have to go through the grind of playing in what was the best conference in college men's basketball in the history of the NCAA. And to be able to come out of that as a regular season champion was quite an accomplishment. The question then was, is there any more step up in your game? Because that's what you have to do in March. And I thought that through the Creighton, Michigan State games, we demonstrated that we had more in the tank.
Coach, we'll open things up on the right side of the room, just to the left of the aisle. We're going to hand that microphone.
Adam Cole, Montgomery Advertiser. Bruce, I wanted to ask you about Chad Baker-Mazara and Corey Williams. I know they're close, but I just wanted to ask you, how would you describe their relationship and just how valuable has it been for not only them, but for the program?
Well, there's a lot of aspects to coaching, and part of it is ministerial. And Coach Dye said, you could coach him as hard as you love him. Coach Dye coached him hard. Corey approaches it a little differently. He really builds relationships. He does it through faith. Time is a love language, and Corey spends time with Chad and has gotten to know him really well, and is able to help him navigate through different challenges. And when you are able to build trust in a relationship between a coach and a player, you can get through difficult things, and there's nobody that you'd rather celebrate success with than somebody that sort of helped you get through that stuff.
Coach, our next question on the left side of the room, toward the back.
Sorry. Hey, Bruce, Chris Harry from FloridaGators.com. 4 years ago, what was your knowledge or your staff's knowledge of any, if any, of Janai Broome and Walter Clayton Jr. as high school prospects? They were basically 20 miles apart, unrecruited by high majors in the state and in the region. And what would you attribute their unique paths to getting to first-team All-American status and now being here in the Final Four in their unique way?
Yeah, obviously great players, and arguably the best players in the country at their position. It's hard to recognize a more complete point guard than Walter Clayton Jr. Look, he's been the best guard on the floor almost every single night. He was when we played him in Neville Arena. Now, Denver Jones and Miles Kelly and Todd Pettiford, Chad Baker-Mazara have an opportunity again to change that, but that's going to take some real doing. I remember when they were both coming out, obviously because both Florida and Auburn were tried to recruit both of them, and I remembered Walter really wanting to either, as I recall, he was going to stay in New York and maybe go to St. John's or maybe do something along those lines, or go back home. Like I remember that being a factor for him. So we had very little chance. With Janai, we had two advantages. One, we had played Morehead State earlier that year, and so Janai got a chance to play against Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler and watch what kind of phenomenal year they had. And by playing in Neville Arena, he saw the jungle and he saw the incredible home court advantage that we had. And then, of course, when both of those guys went and drafted in the first round, Janai knew the opportunity was wide open at Auburn. Florida was bringing back one of their good big kids. And who's that? Castleton. Yeah, Castleton. And our cupboard was bare. So he knew that he could come in, and we have taken full advantage of the big fella over the last 3 years. Arguably the best transfer because of the 3-year impact he's had, maybe in the history of the portal.
Coach, next question. Second row center, Adam.
Hey, Bruce. Adam Zagoria, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Tahad seems to have embraced, coming off the bench as a sixth man. Not everybody would embrace that. Can you just kind of talk about, were there any struggles in getting him to embrace that role and just maybe the Jersey City toughness that he brings?
Yeah. I suppose some would just sort of expect that to be a problem. Great player, one of our best players, and yet only started one game because of, I think Denver was injured. And not a word. Not a body language, shoulder shrug, roll eye ever from Tahad. Because if he did, his dad would slap it right out of him, Travis. In the sense that, Tahad great respect for the guys like Denver or Chad or Cheney that were in front of him. And they were seniors. And now, he may not feel the same way if he's not in there at the end. And in case you hadn't noticed, he's almost always in there at the end. So I just think it's about being raised right. It's about being raised to sort of have a level of respect and manners for the position of a coach having to make those decisions, and then a player that is not worrying about what he can't control. And so he's been a unbelievable, one of the best freshmen in college basketball this year. I mean, you look at him and Cooper Flagg and maybe a couple of others who's had greater impact on the success of the team than those two guys. So he recognizes he's gotten the notoriety. He also recognizes that he's always been overlooked because he's 5'11", and he'll be overlooked in the Final Four again. But he has the opportunity to prove you that he's pretty special. And the Jersey City toughness, it comes through all the time. That confidence, he feels prepared. Dad played him up his whole life. He always played against older kids, so this is nothing new to him.
One row back.
Hey, Bruce, over here. West to Orlando.
I'm sorry.
I know that you kind of gave Todd Golden his start in college coaching, and he has a special relationship with your son, Steven, and you as well. What is that relationship like with him and now having to go against him in the Final Four?
Well, here's the thing. I didn't give him his start. He actually got his start at Columbia with Coach Smith, who's a huge, huge part of his coaching tree and family and everything like that. But I did give him his first shot at the Power Five. What is significant about it is I'd been out of coaching for 3 years. When I was getting back into coaching, I was putting my staff together, and I brought my son, Steven, and I brought Todd and a couple of other guys that I really trusted. And I think that meant a lot to Todd. And Todd recognized how close I was to my coaches, how much I relied on my coaches, how much I expected of my coaches, and the bar that we set about the way they behaved, the way they taught, the way they carried themselves. Even though I only had Todd for 2 years, he helped lay the foundation. He helped get some of the recruiting started, which really helped us in our 4th year. Todd and Megan had just gotten married, so they were newlyweds, and they had their first son while he was at Auburn. I was one of the first to hold his son. So there's a very close connection. And all the while, he becomes best friends with his fellow assistant, Stephen Pearl. And the relationship has lasted.
Coach, up front, left side.
Hey, Bruce. Robbie Listella, bracketshere.org. It seems like people have been trying to find ways to write off Auburn ever since the plane incident, but you guys have never let that happen. You guys just kept on grinding. When there's that target on your back as a number one throughout the year, how do you go about pushing away all that outside noise? And is it any different here now in the Final Four?
No, what I've tried to do all year long is demonstrate that this is uncharted waters for Auburn men's basketball. We had some great moments in our history, great coaches, Sonny Smith and Cliff Ellis, great players, and Charles Barkley and Chuck Person and several others, but no real sustained great success. And here we are at the Final Four. Like Houston's won national championships. They've got history with Guy Lewis. They've been here before. Duke's that story's been over and over again, right? And Billy Donovan took Florida here, won a couple national championships, so Florida's got more history. We come in as the overall number one, but we're probably considered the fourth best team here right now. So there is nothing new, and I prefer the underdog role rather than having to prove that we're as good as we say we are. So we're going to take that underdog role into the Final Four and see if we can capitalize on it.
On the right side, Aaron.
Hey, Bruce. Aaron Beard with the AP. Obviously, this is 2 Final Fours in short order for you in a short span. There's been a lot of discussion about revenue sharing, especially in a time when football is commanding the spotlight with media deals and money and everything else. I'm curious kind of how you view the way basketball fits at Auburn in the new landscape in terms of resources and all these things, because here you are and, you've built an elite program.
I think every day the rules change. And I think that could be the case every day leading up to the next several days. So I couldn't answer the question because I don't know exactly what revenue sharing is going to look like. I don't know. We don't know if the case is going to be settled. I'm just glad that the student athletes are finally able to be compensated. And the market has demonstrated that they've been worth a lot more than what they've been compensated in the past. But we do need some guidelines, absolutely. Because if we want to have a true national champion, then when the ball gets tossed up, we've all got to be playing with the same resources and the same rules, generally speaking. That's what they do in every other professional sport. So I really don't know, what that's going to look like. I'm sure in the SEC, we're going to be committed to being excellent in everything across the board, men, women, all sports. I don't see the SEC or Greg Sankey creating a revenue share where we can't maintain the level of competitiveness that we enjoy right now.
Coach up front, left of the aisle.
All right, Bruce, Philip Marshall, Auburn 247 Sports. This is kind of there's a division in this tournament. There's 2 old guys and 2 young guys. You and Kevin have been through adversity and all these things in your career. How much difference does that make? And is this kind of a trend of younger assistant or younger head coaches? I'm sorry.
The only way I look at it is Kelvin and I have fewer chances to get where we are right now, whereas John Shire and Todd Golden will be back here many more times. So Kelvin and I better take advantage of it this time, because we're clearly on the back 9. I'm not on the 18th hole yet, but we're getting closer. And so, Todd and John don't give up anything in experience. They just give up a little bit, and they don't have as much gray hair, and they may not have been beat down as much as Kelvin and I have been over the years.
Couple of rows back, Justin.
ABB, Justin Hoganson, Auburn Live. Sorry if you were already asked this, but what do you kind of remember about that Florida game? I remember afterwards you talked about sort of a hunger level on their part, them being hungry, and obviously defensively not one of your best games. Do you still look at it the same way after you've probably looked at more film of it?
Well, I thought Florida outplayed us. I mean, I thought that it was a Florida win rather than an Auburn loss. I did feel at the time that we had some fatigue that was sort of setting in a little bit. We really hadn't had much of a grind point. We had one there at the Florida game, and then we may have one there after we won the SEC championship at Rupp. But Florida won the game and controlled we got off to a really good start, but they won the game where they've been winning games. They banged 13 threes. They had 22 assists. Their front line played with tremendous physicality, effort, energy, and outplayed us. And so, if that's the case, they're going to beat us again. We got to figure out. They scored 90, and so their depth, I think, was a factor. And so, we recognize that there were a number of things that we didn't do that they did that we're going to have to fix this time around if we're going to have a chance to beat them. And again, Clayton can't be the best player on the floor again for us to win the game.
Coach, moving to the back of the room, toward the center, Myron.
Myron Metcalf, ESPN. Janai Broom said he's been working hard. He'll be 100% on Saturday. What does that mean for this team that he's going to be completely available with no limitations?
Well, I'm glad he feels that way. Today was the first day he moved and practiced, so I was glad to see him. Obviously, good to see him out there. The one thing Janai Broom showed in this NCAA tournament, that there was another level, there was another gear. Everybody keeps watching him and wondering, when is he going to fizzle? When is he going to not show up? And he again managed to step up. He was 10 for 13 against Michigan State, and that was a huge difference for us. Now, look, Florida recognizes that, and Florida's bigs are a little bigger and a little bit more athletic than Michigan State's or Michigan's bigs. But Janai was the MVP of the South region, and we rode him hard, and we're going to ride him hard again on Saturday.
Center of the room, Coach.
Is it on?
Back left microphone for you, Aaron.
Jerry Humphrey III with AL.com. Coach, that first matchup against Florida, where did you see your team grow the most since that game, and did that serve as the turning point for you guys this season?
I think when you go through the grind of the SEC, that it's really hard to have it every night. And I think Florida had it that night. I do. It played great. Now look, and we maybe didn't. I have been saying since prior to the Florida game that I think Florida's playing the best basketball of anybody in the country. I've said it publicly a dozen times. Now, is that a slap in the face to Duke or to Houston or to my Auburn team? No, it's not. That's how I have felt. Does that mean we can't beat them? Of course not. But Florida, I felt that way going into the game. And then in the game, they showed us that. They were better than us, and we were the number one team in the country. So I don't know that we've improved that much. We know, maybe we know a little bit more of who we are and what we have to do in order to win that game, the things that we didn't do the first time.
Back of the room, 2 seats in.
Bruce, Nathan King, Auburn Undercover. You mentioned Florida's bigs. I know the physicality and rebounding, that was a challenge you presented to your team going into the tournament. How well do you think they've responded to that throughout 4 games here, and how much better are they going to have to be as compared to that first matchup against Florida?
Yep, almost asked and answered. I mean, I think in a sense that we've stepped up with our physicality. We've competed very well on the boards. We've been really good on the offensive glass, and we've been able to win those matchups in 4 games. This is what Florida's strength is. They're plus 12.5 rebound margin right now. And they have 5 bigs that they rotate. And right now we're rotating 3. Depth is usually a strength of mine. We typically in my career been a guy that's played 9, 10 guys double-digit minutes. We're really only playing 7, maybe 8. The length of the timeouts, the extra 5 minutes at halftime, gives a team with a little less depth an opportunity to maybe get a little bit more rest. But obviously, what takes its toll are the number of bodies they're going to put on our leading scorer in Janai Broom. And they know it, we know it, he knows it, and we're ready for it.
Likely the final question to the left of the aisle.
Hi, Coach. Kiana Martin with CBS Sports, and my apologies if you already answered this, but just considering that you guys are a team that's built on experience, you consider your starters being seniors here and in the years of COVID years and so on and so forth, how have you seen this maybe be a benefit to you and your team?
This is it. Like, we're running out of one shining moments. Like, we do it now, or like Dylan Carwell said, this is his last free breakfast. Any morning, he's been prepared to wake up and not have a free breakfast. And so, there are a lot of T-shirts out. We want Dylan to continue to eat free. And so I think that's what it is. It's just a level of desperation that knowing that tomorrow could be our last game every single time for this group. And so they don't want this to end.
We want to thank Coach Pearl for joining us here in the main interview room. Coach, welcome back once again to the Final Four.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Coach is going to head to do some